these tunes. Oh yeah. Fired our guns and the British kept a coming. Wasn't quite as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. That's Johnny Horton's ballad of the Battle of New Orleans, which commemorates Andrew Jackson's fantastic victory and defeat of the British, and it catapults Andrew Jackson to a national prominent role as a war hero and eventually to the presidency. Just for the record, Jackson's great-looking hairdo, that fiery-looking coif on top of his hair, well done, sir. I mean, I know good hairdos, and that man's got it going on. Wanted to spend our time tonight really with two things, and one is the causes of the War of 1812, and the other is the consequences. This war often gets overlooked in American history, and it's important for us to note how it changes America's stature on the world scene. So let's start with the causes. Both of the root causes of the war have to do with the English. One of them is on the west, and one of them is on the east. So let's start on the west. American settlers who were flowing over the Appalachian Mountains into what we'd call the Trans-Appalachian West, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, were finding more and more Native Americans armed and well-stocked with British supplies and with British money. See, the British were providing the Native Americans with all the incentive that they needed to resist Americans. It's unclear whether or not they intended to try and take the continent back, but it's at least clear that they were causing a huge problem for Americans. They weren't directly at war with us, but they were helping Native Americans to be at war with us. The English are doing this from their bases in Canada. Remember, they had to leave the American part of North America, but they're still in Canada and they're able to do a lot of damage there. So you have this group called the War Hawks, Southern and Western congressmen who are fed up with these Indian attacks and want America to go to war against England so that they can more easily defeat the Native Americans. On the other hand, you have what's called impressment. Impressment is just a fancy-dancy word for piracy. The English on the high seas felt it was within their right to seize and take and pillage and do whatever they had to do in order to assure that American shipping never found its way to any of England's enemies. We have to remember that the English are at war during this period with the French and with a variety of other countries as a result of the Napoleonic Wars. Stopping American shipping made good sense to them, to the English that is, because it was a way for them to fight the war on non-military means. Unfortunately for us, it's crippling. We as a country need trade. We need a way to grow these very young, very struggling at this point industrial resources of America, and we need a way, frankly, to defeat the English when it comes to economics, and this is going to stop us from doing that. While people began to clamor for war in the 1800s, or whatever you want to call that decade, President Jefferson decided that an embargo was the better way to go. The Embargo Act of 1807 was a horrific disaster that crippled American trade and really made Jefferson the demon of a lot of people. When we finally do go to war in 1812, the war isn't much to note. As I said, the most famous battle, that Battle of New Orleans, really takes place after the war treaty has been signed, and it catapults Jackson to a role of national prominence. But as far as consequences go, it's really important that we understand that the War of 1812 carves out for the United States a place on the world scene. You can't call us a world power yet. We're not a post-1945 superpower. We're not anything of that nature. But for the first time in our nation's history, our independence and our strength and our ability to conduct our own affairs do not depend upon the capricious attitudes of the Europeans. It's not up to whether or not the English or the French or perhaps some other power wanted to exercise control against us. It's simply up to us as a country. Washington had warned us in his farewell address that we should steer clear of the Europeans, and though we had been trying to do that for a solid decade and a half since he left the office, we hadn't been able to do it fully. But now we have the opportunity to grow. We've shown a little bit of military muscle, but the industrial resources that had to kick in for us to fight that war have begun to hum to an extent where we're going to have a real strong industrial push in America. The War of 1812, as I said, is often overlooked, but not rightly so. It allows America to start flexing its muscles and taking its first baby steps on the world stage. Hope you had a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.